Hey, welcome to Loose Change. Much better than the book version. I'm telling you. So keep the page where it's at for you right now. Great guests coming up. Hang around. But first, what's going on? Greg, as always, I'm at home, laying around on the couch, TV's on, dozing in and out. And I wake up and I see what I think is a science show. And NASA is exploring new available space. Then I look closer. It's just news video inside the Southern Park Mall. So, what's going on there? I don't know. Hey, pro football going really well in Cleveland right now. Well, yeah, St. Ed's doing great. St. Ignatius coming on. So now, as of the taping of this show, the Browns had just got flattened by the 49ers. Next up, Seattle. Then they have a bye, at which time they may need an alibi. We'll see what they do. Also, last Sunday, there were 7 more whistleblowers that came out in Washington. Oh, wait, that was the Redskins game. Something a little different, maybe. If you follow the stock market, see a lot of instability right now. So much so, trading is down on wife swap. So keep an eye on that. And the Kansas basketball program recently had its Midnight Madness game. And at halftime, believe it or not, they had none other than Snoop Dogg perform for the big crowd. Now, think about that. Nothing says more about clean, family, wholesome entertainment than Snoop Dogg trying to get his drabizzle on. I think the smoke has yet to clear out of the gym. In a related note, though, Kansas basketball, like a lot of other schools, now has its own dating website. If you're a big Jayhawks fan, you can connect. And I guess, that'd be a lot of fun. Certainly have something in common. But for me, I don't know. I don't think I want to put all my chips on a rebound relationship. Speaking of which, Pat Birch, Boardman boys basketball coach, joins us next right here on Loose Change. Keep it up.
Stream live and recorded content anywhere with EXP from Armstrong. Stay connected to the content you love. With the all-new EXP app, you can browse and manage your shows and set recordings for TV shows, movies, and series. Plus, you can stream your favorite networks directly from your DVR or with TV Everywhere. At home, the app also lets you transform your device into a second TV screen or remote control. Your content, your way, when you want it. EXP from Armstrong.
Welcome back to Loose Change. I'm Jim Evans. I had the great pleasure to be joined by the head basketball coach of the Boardman boys, Pat Birch. And Coach, thanks so much for being with us. Appreciate it. Nice to see you again. And what we like to have our victims or our guests do off the top. For those who don't know, give us a little background about yourself, where you're from and where you went to school and how your career took a path.
Absolutely. I'm entering my 8th season at Boardman. I've been teaching there for 12 years now. I graduated from Springfield local in the area. I had a few nice teams there that fell in love with basketball. Played football there as well. Actually went to college, played football at Baldwin Wallace, and then somewhere along the path, my high school coach Jeff Brink ended up at Hudson.
Yeah.
And I was finishing up school. He asked me if I wanted to coach with him, and I said sure. I student taught there, fell in love with coaching hoops, and here I am about 13 years later, sitting here with you. So. It's been a good run. Learned a lot along the way, and I had a mentor like Coach Brink that showed me so much, and then a few other good coaches along the way too that have helped me out.
Who might some of those other people be?
I was fortunate to work with Dan McCune before me.
Yeah.
Dan had a lot of strengths with people, organizing things. Jim Goski brought a lot of experience that I was able to gain from. Those 2 guys were my first 2 guys that I worked with at Boardman, and then I worked with Dan Gorski for a little bit in the social studies department, who had a nice run at Boardman, so me and him talk frequently about hoops.
You talk to any coach, and everyone says they take a little bit from this guy and that guy or that person, that woman might be, and then you kind of form your own path, so to speak. That sounds like that's the case.
Yeah, absolutely. The most would definitely go for my high school coach, like I said, Jeff Brink. He taught me the fundamentals. He taught me I think what it really means to be a good coach. He has a unique personality to him. He's fiery. I have a little bit of that in me, but at the same time, I've learned you have to be your own person. What works for one doesn't work for the other. And I think if you're not authentic, the kids see through that. Kind of like teaching. If you're not an authentic teacher, they're going to see through you pretty quick. So you got to find your own way of doing things.
What does make a good coach?
I really think the old saying that they don't know, the kids don't care what you know, they know that you care. And I think one of the things that I've really tried to do is establish relationships with my players. Being in the building, being a teacher, seeing them as students, seeing them in the hallway, I think carries over to a trust that we develop together. And I think the senior class that I have right now is a really good example of that. I'm close with so many of those guys that we've just built a relationship over the last probably 5 or 6 years together.
And being a teacher, obviously, that's equally as important as I talk to everybody in
absolutely,
academics.
Yeah, again, going back to my coach, Jeff Brink, he was a phenomenal teacher, someone that I learned early on that he took as much pride in the classroom as he does on the court.
It's all about the kids, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it has to be. I mean, no one's in this profession to get rich. I think anyone that goes into teaching and coaching has a passion to work with kids. It's something I found early on as I was doing youth camps. And in high school, I really enjoyed working with kids that were in elementary school at the time and showing them some stuff. And I knew, okay, this is something that I like to do. I come from a family of teachers. My mom's a teacher. Cool. Both sisters are teachers. I married a teacher. So,
wow.
Yeah, our lives are wrapped up in school, and I wouldn't change it.
Absolutely. I'm sure it's been a learning curve for you as you've come through, your coaching career here, and maybe you pick up something or try something new each year. Are you still developing that?
Yeah, I think as a coach, you're constantly kind of innovating what you do.
Yeah.
What works for one group isn't going to work for the next group necessarily. The learning curve you mentioned was pretty steep for me early on. In our first couple of years, we took it on the chin. We were still in the Federal League. We had gone through a lot of changeover as a program in the previous 6-7 years. So I think my first goal was really just to, just stabilize things, and get things kind of going in the right direction. And we did that early on, and I think by year 3 we started to see some progress. And then we broke through a couple years ago with a 19-win team, a group of kids that have really come up through the program. But what worked for that team wasn't the same recipe that we used last year. Going back to your question about kind of innovating and adapting, and we learned early on last year that we could really get after people in pressure and get up and down. That group did a really good job of it, whereas a couple years ago they were just a really fundamental half-court team. And so I think every year you kind of look at what you have with your Jimmies and Joes and try to figure out what works with them.
Yeah. And you mentioned the early years, and I remember covering a lot of your games then, talking with you then, got to know you. And obviously you had a plan there, a blueprint that you wanted to follow, and you've stuck with that. I would assume the way things have gone.
Yeah, like I said, first couple of years was really, I was learning on the fly, and I was a young coach, and maybe a little naive at the time. I thought you could come in and things are going to go right away, but that wasn't the case. And I learned from those first couple of years of some things that I need to do better. I think the best thing we've done as a program is really establish our youth program as a premier youth program in the area. We looked at some other successful programs like a Massillon Jackson, who does have a phenomenal youth program. They have the gold standard of youth programs I think everyone's trying to chase. But for the area, I'd put ours up against anyone. We have a consistent group every year, and we get about 150 to 200 kids coming through every year, and that has definitely found its way to the varsity program.
What makes that work at the youth level?
People, like any other organization, we have really good people that have been involved that dedicate their time because they see they see what it's all about at the end of the day. They know that, okay, the time we're putting at the youth level that we start in first grade now goes through sixth grade, that is built into the junior high programs. We've seen it with the freshman level the last few years, and now we're seeing it at the varsity level too. So people just know that this is something that's for the good of the program, and I have a lot of guys that are very invested in that side of it.
Your success here recently figures into the rich tradition you have at Boardman basketball.
Yeah.
I mean, it hit some flat spots along the way, but there's been a lot of great teams and players and coaches.
Yeah, I was at our Hall of Fame dinner a couple weekends ago, and they were talking about the 1969-1970 team that made it to the state semifinals. And then you look through like the next 6-7 years, and it's amazing what Coach Burns did with that program and how really he was ahead of his time as a coach and the talent that they had come through. And you hear all these great stories of, if you weren't in the gym by the JV tip, you weren't getting a seat. And we're trying to recapture that. Like any program, you want to go back to your glory days. And we've had some moments. Our tournament game last year, we walked in there about an hour ahead of time, and people were there. And the students are in all white, and we had a white out with the community. It felt really good. We're not where Coach Burns was in the in the 70s, rolling to state semifinals, but that's what we're trying to get to.
You mentioned that response, and that comes with having a program as opposed to just having a team, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really what I like to think that we've established as a program. I think the expectations and what's understood of our players inside and outside of the classroom and on the floor has permeated throughout the building. I feel like we've developed a really good just chemistry with our staff and community and the kids. Again, I think being a teacher, I have a really good relationship with the students who then come out and support the basketball team. At the end of the day, winning helps. When you win some games, people want to come watch you. That was one of the questions in my first few years was, how do we generate more excitement? I was like, well, you play better basketball.
Yeah, right.
When you start winning games, people show up, and we've been fortunate, the last few years to be able to do that.
You have to have the support of the administration as well.
Absolutely.
You have that.
Yeah, and early on, Tim Saxon was our high school principal before becoming superintendent, and I think he was someone that believed in me, and he took a chance on me. I was 27 at the time, 28. Mm-hmm. And, a young guy would have been easy just to say, hey, hold off, you're not ready. But he took a chance with me and then was patient and kind of let me develop a little bit over the first few years. And I think I was fortunate where, in some cases you might not get that time. You might not get the, the years to kind of figure it out. And he did that. And then the current administration, same thing. They're very supportive with what we do.
What was your feeling at that time, going for the job? Obviously, you're confident in your abilities, and I can do it. But it's a big challenge.
Yeah, it was. I was sitting there.
That's all right, though.
I was actually coaching football at the time. I was varsity assistant with football, coaching JV basketball, kind of doing everything.
Okay.
As a young teacher, and I saw the job. It opened up, and it was at that point it was October. It kind of happened late, right before the season, and some things just kind of fell my way. And I was coaching football, and I'm like, why not? So I went for it, and I got it, and I think for about the last 4 weeks of the football season, I was going from varsity football practice, to open gyms, to I was taking a master's class at the time. I'm like, what am I doing?
You're still standing.
Yeah. Well, I didn't have kids, so that was the biggest
there
difference
you
at the time. Kids came along later, so I think I was fortunate in that time in life to have the energy and time to go do all these things without even, I didn't know any better. I figured, why not?
Obviously, different sports, but how is coaching football different to coaching basketball?
The preparation's a little different because you go from week to week. Football prep was a lot. I really learned that early on. Coach Ogilvie was the head coach at the time, and his staff was great. Mike Popio was a guy that I learned a lot from in terms of being detailed and being ready to take on a team. Basketball is a little bit more, you're constantly doing that. Football is like you had your weekend to get ready, you put it in on Monday, and you got a few days to kind of tweak it. Basketball, you play on Tuesday, and you're back to work on Wednesday, kind of figuring out the next team, while you're also trying to figure out what went good or what went bad on Tuesday. So you have to be a little bit more, I think, maybe a little bit more flexible with hoops because you have it come so fast at you. I think once you set your foundation with basketball, you just keep trying to get better and better with that, whereas football, you're putting in new formations, you're putting in new packages week to week.
But you borrowed some, I'm sure, things that you did football to integrate it with your basketball
absolutely.
Coaching,
just in terms of a program, I mentioned Coach Ogilvie, Mark Duramo was there for 2 years, who was a really good organizer and manager and had so many great ideas with how to build a program. I've tried to cherry pick some of those ideas in terms of just themes and ideas that he implemented in his 2 years of, he was successful, won a Federal League championship in his first year. Yeah. So I think being a first-year coach, I talked to him, hey, how'd you do this? How'd you get through some of the booster clubs and, all the ins and outs of being a head coach that comes with it?
Have you noticed much of a change? You're still a young guy, and you're only 28 now, right? So,
yeah, absolutely.
But have you noticed much of a change from when you were a player to now, or obviously it's a different perspective for you being a coach now, but is there much of a change from the game, things involved?
At the high school level, not as much. Obviously, with your upper levels, your professional, how the reliance on the three has really changed the game. I don't think that has quite made its way to the high school level as much yet. I think not having a shot clock in high school has probably kept that from really overtaking the game. As a kid, you always think you work harder than the next generation. You always think, but my guys are good. My guys have really bought into the program, and I think that's one thing I carried with me from, in high school was the expectation of it's not if you're going to be there, it's when you're going to be there, and this is something we do. We go to summer leagues, we go to shootouts.
Yeah.
You don't it's not a second guess, it's something that you do. But same time, kids are pulled in a lot of different directions today that I wasn't.
Exactly.
I'm kind of that bridge between the no social media and social media age, and they have all these things that are pulling at them that I, even 20 years ago, didn't have.
Right.
AAU basketball is a lot bigger today than it was 20 years ago. So they're just pulled in different directions, and I think trying to get them, focused at basketball at the right time is another challenge that maybe coaches a couple of decades ago didn't have.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick break and then more to come. Pat Birch, we'll be right back right after this.
Is there anything else I can help you with?
Wish dealing with the phone company was this easy.
It would be if you had Armstrong Telephone, and you'd be saving money.
Really?
Plus, all your Armstrong services would be on one easy-to-read bill.
But can I keep my number?
Yep. We'd even take care of the switch, so you don't have to call them.
Sign me up!
All right.
Call today and save. Get Armstrong Telephone for $9.95 a month for 6 months. Armstrong, life made easy.
Welcome back to Loose Change, along with Boardman boys head basketball coach Pat Birch. I'm Jim Evans, and before the break, Coach, you were talking about the kids in social media, and every coach tells me the same thing. You can't prevent them from being involved in it, so you kind of touched on it, but how do you kind of manage that, or do you?
You try, like you said. I mean, you're never. Kids are going to hit send when they shouldn't hit send.
Okay.
Kids are going to take a picture when maybe they shouldn't take a picture, and it's what they've grown up with. They really don't know any different at this point.
Second nature to
It
them,
is,
yeah.
and I think as a staff and as an athletic department, as really a school, we've really tried to educate kids on, once you do hit send or tweet or snap, it's out there, and no matter what you do, if it's not right, it's probably going to come back to you. And kids, I think the more you educate them on it, the more you just keep kind of making them aware of it. They hopefully don't make those decisions, post something that they think might be a joke, isn't a joke, And when it happens, you just teach them, you try to make it a learning lesson and show everyone else, hey, this was a scenario, and, what maybe didn't seem like a big deal at the time, but obviously here's a repercussion, and here's what we got to learn from it.
Maybe at times you don't want them to be caught up in, things that might influence them in terms of, how they're approaching, the program, their play, their practice.
Yeah, and I think that, and I think kind of the image of your program that you want to portray to the community is a really big deal to me. We've worked hard to, I think, build, like I said, an expectation for who we are, and to me that carries over with what they do in the classroom, but also kind of on social media. Once you're a Boardman basketball player, you represent us, and to me that carries to a lot of different layers in their life.
You mentioned about the game, and I've noticed over recent seasons, and it's not quite that much in high school ball, but even I'm still seeing that where it's almost like the mid-range jump shot is becoming a thing of the past. I mean, even at the high school level, we're seeing more and more three-point or driving to the basket. What's your approach on that?
I still think it's a tool. Our best player next year, his best part of his game is probably his mid-range game. And it's like, if a kid's really good at it, why try to take that away? Our point guard is very good at getting to about that 15-foot range, and he has a really good jump shot from in there. So I'm never going to tell him, hey, don't shoot that. I think just in the NBA, you see it. They go by percentages and analytics, and I understand that, but it's kind of like a post-up, a back-to-the-basket guy. Like that's something that really has disappeared from the professional game.
Yeah, it has.
Even a decade ago, you had Shaq still dominating the post, and Dwight Howard was pretty good down there. Now today, I don't know if you could find one guy that's really good with his back to the basket.
I can't name anybody off the top of my head.
It's crazy how that has evolved, and I'm not sure why. Maybe I guess the numbers prove otherwise. Excuse me.
Do you think that's a good thing, the way the game has changed, or you kind of hold on to?
There's aspects of it. A lot of people, and myself included, being a Cavs fan, have not been the biggest Warriors fan over the last few years. Them adding Kevin Durant kind of spoiled that, but then you watch the way they've played, and I love it. It's hard to hate on how they play because they're moving the ball. They emphasize ball movement and being unselfish. Watching teams like the Rockets and James Harden dribble the basketball 1,000 times a game gets hard sometimes because you see your kids do that, and that's one of my biggest pet peeves with coaching is watching guys dribble and go nowhere. So I think there's positives and negatives. As a young coach, I always tried to highlight the Spurs and what they did and the unselfishness. And now, the young guys coming up, they want to be the James Harden. They want to shoot the 1-foot fadeaway. And it's like, he does that all summer thousands of times. When have you done that? But I think it's just trying to teach the right thing.
What personality would you assign to your basketball team here of late and maybe coming into this season?
I think of late, we've been a hard-nosed team. I think especially last year defensively, if you watch any of our games, we really got after teams. We really challenged teams. Excuse me.
I had the same thing. So.
Really challenged teams full court, and we had some really good senior leaders that set that tone, and that's what we're going to try to hang our hat on again this year is everyone could score at a certain point. Can you defend and can you stop? And we got to the tournament, and that's one thing that we realized that while we thought we were a good defensive team, we ran into Green, who was a great defensive team. So we learned our lesson there that, okay, we probably got to be a little bit better than what we were even last year.
Has it always been defense first?
Yeah, I tried to. Yeah, absolutely. I think being unselfish has been a calling card that I've tried to install from day one, and playing hard defense and really playing with a lot of effort. That's one of the things that carried over from being a football coach was that there's no reason not to give effort. And in football, that's such a part of the game, and I tried to bring that toughness to the basketball floor with me as well.
What makes a good defensive team? Communication?
Yeah, first and foremost. Yep. Yeah, you have to, excuse me, you have to communicate. The saying is a quiet gym's a losing gym. And if you don't have guys that are a voice, really you can't be good defensively. Our best defender last year was our loudest person. Cam Krebs did so much for us defensively, and he covered so much because he was active, but he was also calling it out, which I think allowed him to see the game. And that's one thing all summer, all preseason, we're constantly telling our guys, talk. And it's hard for kids to do that.
Yeah.
It's not in everyone's personality, but we try to squeeze it out of them.
Just from watching you in recent years and talking with you and following you, and I know you want your kids to be hard-nosed, play tough, but they play smart too.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Basketball IQ is something that I think the youth program is now developed. Kids are playing a lot more.
That means something.
They're being taught the right way. And some classes have it, some don't as much. Like our seniors right now, probably the smartest group I've had in terms of just really knowing the game. A lot of them will make instinctual plays that I'd love to take credit for, but they just do. Game sticks out in our tournament game at home last year against Dover. One of the first few plays of the game, our guard, Zach Ryan's going out of bounds, and he tossed it over his head, a perfect pass for a layup the other way. That's not something we practice.
No.
But he had it. And we have a lot of guys like that just make instinctual plays, which is, as a coach, it's fun because they have good attitudes, they play hard, they know the game, and you start to have some good ingredients there.
Yeah, for sure. Who are some key guys that we're going to hear about this year?
With 7 of our top 9 returning, 7 lettermen, which is nice. The 2 guys that we lose out of that top 9 were very significant, though, both in terms of leadership and ability. So we're hoping some guys will, fill those voids. The name you'll probably hear the most is our point guard, Derek Anderson. He was the All-American Conference Player of the Year last year, first team Northeast Ohio, All-Mention All-Ohio. So he's a guy that I think is going to draw a lot of eyeballs. I think the next name you're going to hear a lot is our junior center/forward, Ethan Anderson. No relation between the two, but they're both very good basketball players. Ethan's really grown up. He went from a role player last year to, I think, a guy that we're going to rely on. And then some of our other returners, Zach Ryan was a starter. Tommy Friday started some games for us. Connor Miller started a couple games for us last year, was a significant role. Charlie Davis is another guy that is going to step up and play some big minutes this year.
You mentioned some awards. You received the same as well last year, the Coach of the Year.
Sorry, Dajuan Martin is another kid that's going to play a significant role for us. Sorry.
That's all right, but the District Coach of the Year and
pretty cool. I was surprised. That was one that I think it was the Northeast Inland.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there one morning and I got a text message, "Hey, congratulations!" And I didn't know what they were talking about. We had just won, I think, the night before. So a couple more. All of a sudden, my mom's calling me, of course. She couldn't be happier. And pretty cool when you see some of the guys that have won that award. I think it was just more credit to where our program is hopefully headed. I think it was a real credit to our kids last year. Any type of acknowledgement is really about the team.
Sure.
I told that to Derek. I said, you're a junior, you're getting a lot of this pats on the back. I said, you don't get any of this if we don't win games and your teammates aren't there helping you. So I think that's just what you have to keep in mind.
How do you feel about your schedule coming up this season?
It's going to be challenging. We shifted some games. A couple teams dropped that we had played in the past that we're not playing. Our league realigned a little bit. So we probably lost maybe 4 or 5 games that on paper would have felt very good about, and we added 4 or 5 games that we're going to have to really go play some good basketball to get a win. We play Glen Oak to start the season. We have Hickory from Western Pennsylvania, who's really good. Yeah. We have Lake in there, who has one of the best programs, in the state. Poland's always good.
Yep.
We have Green as kind of a mid-season rematch, so
We're
excited.
Good.
It's going to be a fun challenge.
Just a good basketball in Ohio, isn't
Yeah,
it?
you know what? And at the end of the day, we said, maybe we don't win 20 games again, but maybe when it comes down to it, we're more prepared to do what we have to do in the tournament.
Yeah. And you have something special coming up for the program, right? Isn't there a fundraiser?
Yeah, we have a bocce social coming up at the MVR, something that we've done the last few years that Dan McCune started before me. It's just a fun day to get together and raise a little bit of money, and it's always kind of like our kickoff event to the season. So that's October 20th down at the MVR.
Okay. Well, hey, we can't thank you enough for taking time to come be with us.
I appreciate it. So, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be sitting here. So.
Well, best of luck to you. And hopefully we're going to be out and doing some hoops this year. And we'll have a chance to catch you. So, Pat,
all right, Jim, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Pat Birch. We'll be back to wrap it up right after this.
Hunger exists in every county in America. More than 1 in 5 children are at risk. Armstrong continues to create awareness in our communities through Breaking Bread, our initiative to provide resources to food pantries and soup kitchens. Here's how to help. Stop by your local Armstrong office and donate non-perishable food items. Attend special Breaking Bread events held in your area, or volunteer at your local food bank. For more information, visit us on Facebook at Armstrong One Wire and click the Breaking Bread tab.
Well, that's going to do it for our show. Thanks so much to Pat Birch, and best of luck to the Boardman boys basketball team and all their programs, for that matter. Thanks, as always, to Greg Roten and to all of you, and of course, to Mom and Dad. And hey, you can check us out on YouTube. Go to Armstrong Loose Change, and that's where we'll see you next time, right here. You want me to leave now?